since it was our first time going to SEMA, he said it would be cool if we had one of your chassis on our table. So we'll build a tube chassis. And then I called him. I was like, you know what would be cool is if we put suspension on it so people could grab it and move it through its travel. And it gives them something to play with and they come in your booth.
Interactive.
And then I called him and was like, and it'd be cool if we put a motor on this thing because it's just going to look empty as a tube chassis.
And then it would be cool if I just came in doing a wheelie on it and just drove it up onto your table.
Navigate your leadership journey at the FMA annual meeting, February 27th to the 29th in Clearwater, Florida. At this premier event, you'll connect with top leaders in the fabrication industry to share ideas, collaborate to solve business challenges, and build strategic relationships. Chart your course for success in 2024 and beyond at the FMA annual meeting. Find all the details at fmamfg.org.
Hey, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Josh Weldon, and I'm here with
Rafael Guerrero, editor of the Welder magazine.
And we are doing a podcast today with Greg from Redbeard's Garage, so we're excited about that. We're going to talk about some go-karts and YouTube building and Garbage Pail Kid cards.
Yeah.
So really cool episode.
Yeah, he had everyone has stickers nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that caught our eye, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah. So we didn't actually talk about Garbage Pail Kids during the podcast, but afterwards, Greg made us aware of a sticker that he made with himself as Fat Matt, at like a Garbage Pail Kids playing card, which was pretty dope. So
it's
then
amazing.
Everyone got into looking at how collectible Garbage Pail Kids cards are.
Did you ever collect Garbage Pail Kid cards?
I wasn't allowed to.
No, I don't think I was either.
No, that was too Satanistic for me, for my family.
It was kind of like that. What was that show on Nickelodeon where they slimed
the
people?
Slime. I'm pretty sure if I watch it now, even I'd go to hell.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. So I stay away from it.
No, Brandon was saying that these were like super popular in like what the 80s something.
Oh yeah.
But you're saying that they're making a big comeback now?
Yeah, there's the Topps makes sets again. They're just making the trading card sets.
The nostalgia, because all the kids from the 80s have money now.
What was the oldest year they made them?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I couldn't collect it either, just like you guys.
Yeah, that would be the devil in my pocket. It'd be like having a little devil on your shoulder.
85 is when they first were rolled out.
Those things have to be worth $1 billion now.
Yeah, probably.
At least, maybe $1 trillion.
I don't know. Just the fact that he incorporated the Fat Matt design to his own sticker it's
so great.
So good.
Yeah, I did not collect those.
No.
They're perhaps a bit older than me, so
we got the kid on the pod, the youngster.
We also talked about go-karts.
Yeah, so Greg's he is a badass go-kart builder, and one of the coolest things talking to him is about how he got into it and how he built his YouTube channel while doing it, and just basically teaching himself the skills he needs to fabricate. Really super cool. They're kind of they fit a niche between side-by-sides and badass go-karts. They're these long travel suspensions, juiced up motors, really cool little fabrication tricks, and I'm fascinated by it. I want to build a go-kart now, so I might do that.
You're saying that your dad?
Yeah. So my dad, growing up, my dad was the hardest worker I've ever known. And as a kid, he was always at the second house site building log house, all night long. And so then I go to college and he's done with that house, and all of a sudden he's got time. So he builds my brothers a go-kart. And I was so mad. I was like, what the heck? Just being selfish because I'm a jerk. But the go-kart was like super sketchy. He had actually, when he was younger, he built a go-kart with my uncle. They both built dune buggies out of Volkswagens.
Oh, nice.
And so those were cool. I remember he traded it to somebody for an amphibious vehicle, and then that amphibious vehicle, we were all in it on my grandparents' pond, or a pond on their property, and it started taking on water, and my mom got so scared, so
you get rid of it?
We didn't have that for very long. I don't know that it wasn't normal amount of water being taken on. Either way, that that didn't last more than one trip on the water, at least for me. So, but yeah, he built this go-kart, and it's so dangerous and it's so fast. And so after he passed, I was like, I'm gonna get that go-kart and I'm gonna make it super nice and fast. And then my nephew swooped in and got it, so I'm gonna help him make it really fast.
Yeah,
and
there you
nice.
go. Build that out
for sure. Oh, I'm gonna be picking his brain for sure on a couple of things I want to do.
Rafael, do you have any fun go-kart stories?
Well, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and a very popular tourist spot for families and others in the Chicago area is Wisconsin Dells up north. So that's a couple hours north. And not only is it the water park capital of the world, as they like to advertise, it's also got a lot of go-kart tracks. It's got a number of options there. So that's my experience for the most part with go-karts, and I just love doing that as a kid and as an adult.
I remember there was one go-kart track in the Dells that felt like it was kind of like off the beaten path, and it was kind of shady and sketchy. And those go-karts like would pick up sparks in the back, and you'd get like air on some turns. I'm like, I don't think this.
You always tried to find somebody who worked at a track or knew the vehicles, and they'd be like, I know how to take the governor off. Those were always the tracks you wanted to go to. So you'd be way faster than you're supposed to be.
Yeah. If the guy like getting you into the carts is like looking around first before like he hits
and then he flips a switch and turns you on, and it's like you're going 60 when you should be going 40 or 30.
Right. Exactly.
That's the best. You always had it that one person you knew that knew somebody who worked at the track. That's what you're looking for.
Right, exactly.
Unleash another 15 to, probably 5 horsepower. But
I've also noticed a lot of just indoor go-kart tracks just popping up out of nowhere. Now it's like a place kind of similar like mini golf or something. Yeah, just go there.
We've got a cart-to-cart up in Detroit.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends who are serious like race car drivers, they like to go there and try to have the best times for the year and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I haven't been to one yet. I've been meaning to. I may do it this fall, and it's just.
I want to do one of the multi-level ones. Now they have both out west. They have some in the mountains, like dirt tracks that are go-kart tracks that are super cool. But I know
they're like off-road go-karts.
Yeah,
that are like anyone.
I mean, it's pretty much flat for the most part, but it is dirt.
Gotcha.
And which makes it fun for sliding them around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere close to us in Detroit is building a multi-level go-kart place. I just saw an advertisement for it or something, but I'll have to double check on that. That would be super cool.
We'll have to have like a podcast outing, a Fabricator magazine podcast.
I will finish in last, but I'll be down.
I was just assuming you would just kick all our asses.
I'm a terrible like racing games and go-karts. I'm just not any good at.
Really?
But
like Mario Kart even?
I didn't play Mario Kart. No.
This conversation with Greg was amazing.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
From the like I mentioned it a couple times before, but it's so fascinating, like just how he went into his mindset going into doing his channel. His mindset as far as teaching himself basically live while he's doing the things, finding a niche and just hammering it. And now he's, that's his full-time job. He's got almost 400,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the biggest
crazy number.
So he's killing it. And then his game plan going out, I think is pretty spot on too.
Yeah, well, let's check it out.
Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs, the charitable foundation of the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, is on a mission to shape the future of manufacturing by helping people explore careers in this exciting field. With your help, NBT provides scholarships, grants, and other resources to support the next generation of makers and build a strong, innovative manufacturing industry for years to come. Learn more about NBT and how you can get involved today at fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
And we're back. I'm here with Rafael from FMA and Greg from Redbeard's Garage, and we're going to talk to Red about his the crazy cool stuff he does. I was stuck on before we get into that, go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm Greg from Redbeard's Garage. We're in a small town in Tennessee, and we basically teach people on YouTube how to build and fabricate and make side-by-sides, go-karts, minibikes, everything to have fun and get hurt on.
Yes.
Make it easy.
I was going through some of your videos, and I'm definitely going to be staying in touch with you because I want to make like an urban side by side for the streets of Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be dope. So then I got a go-kart I gotta like make go faster. So
Yeah.
we'll be in touch. So how did you get into what you do?
It started about 7 years ago. Actually, when I started my YouTube channel, I had never welded, touched a grinder, or anything.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'd never built anything other than, messed around with small things. And I was building a couple of different cars. Quickly realized that cars are very expensive, and it's
What
a never
cars were they?
One was a Nissan, and it was just a front wheel drive sedan, and then the other one was the old DSM turbo, the Diamond Star Motorsports cars, like the Eclipses and stuff.
Yep.
And I was learning turbos, and just everything was $1,000. So I would get one thing done, and it was the next thing. So I was like, all right, I got to quit this, or my kids are not going to have
Especially
a future.
on those cars, because it's like there's so much upkeep going on into them.
Yeah, they break constantly. They're one of the worst. And so I sold it and actually got out of it, and made my money back. So I got to learn about turbos and all this stuff, and got to do it for free, basically. And I always wanted a go-kart when I was little because it was the closest thing to a car. You could have a dirt bike or a four-wheeler, but a go-kart was like, your own little car. So I wanted to build my daughter one, and that's what started this whole thing.
Nice. So was that like you documented that process on YouTube, and that's kind of how your following got started?
Yeah, so I started looking up videos myself to try to, because the go-kart world was huge, and I didn't realize how big it was. It was as big as, because I grew up in the Fast and Furious times, and when I saw that movie, it blew my mind. I didn't know you could do all that stuff to cars. So when I found go-karts, I felt that all over again, because there was all these parts to trick out a go-kart, from performance to visuals, and I couldn't find anybody on YouTube explaining why you would do these parts over, or how to even do it. And I was so frustrated, spending hundreds of dollars, didn't know how to install the parts. So I was like, I'm going to figure out how to install them, and I'm going to show people how to install them. So that's what really created the whole channel. I always wanted to do YouTube. I just need to find out what I wanted to do on there.
Right on.
And this was it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience to do the process and learn the process at the same time as you're filming the process.
Yeah.
Like we're there. Yeah. What was the most difficult part of doing that?
The biggest thing was time, because I had, of course, a full-time job. I was working 7 to 7 at a dealership as a technology specialist. So I was teaching people how to use their technology during the day.
Gotcha.
And then I would come home and spend a few hours with my family, and then I was in the garage till about 12 o'clock at night. And then I would edit a little bit before bed, and then edit on breaks at work and stuff. So time was my biggest. I kind of already understood. I had a good understanding of camera placement, and you need really good lighting is the most important thing on YouTube. You can have the worst camera in the world, but if it's lit up, if the subject is lit up really well.
Lighting is king.
Yeah. And so then I just started investing money, and I maxed out every credit card I had for that, because I knew I could make a living at this. So I went at it as hard as I could.
Well, at what point did you know that? Did that realization hit that you could make a living doing that?
Well, we went it's hard to remember back, but I think it was like 6 months, and haven't made any AdSense revenue, which is, for those that don't know, how do you make an income from YouTube? You make a percentage of what they make off the ads. So I was like, man, I hope this kicks in soon, because I've done maxed out this credit card, and did this, and I quit doing my side jobs. I used to wire cars on the side for people, and I had to quit doing that to focus on this. So God is a big part of my life. That's what brought me to this career. I feel like God has blessed me with this career. And one night I was at my quitting point, because I was broke and just like thought it wasn't going anywhere. So I laid in bed and prayed that God would just help me, like, where I was going to quit. I just needed a sign that I was supposed to be doing this. And at that moment, and this is a true story, I get an email, and it was Google saying you have to put in your tax number to get paid. And I looked, and I had $1,500 in there, and I was rich,
No kidding.
No, but that really was huge for me, because we hadn't made a penny off of it. And then there's $1,500 waiting for me right when I was praying about what I was going to do.
That's so dope.
And
so I thought you were going to say like a welder fell out of the sky or something like that, but that's even better.
I got a second-hand welder on the channel, and my first weld is on the channel. I mean, you can see I open up a welder and convert it to run on gas, because it was just a flux core.
Yeah.
And
I'll have to check that out.
yeah,
That's
so
cool.
my very first weld, and people was like, "You're running too fast, too much wire speed." And I just listened to what they said and watched a few videos and started welding.
Any of
big-
those comments stand out to you?
What'd you say?
Any of those comments stand out to you from your first weld?
Yeah, just everybody was supportive more than attacking you. That's one thing I feel like God's blessed us with on the channel is
That's awesome.
our comment section's really, really good. You'll get hate every once in a while, but I remember them just walking me through what to do, and then I started looking up videos on what to do and what they was talking about, and
Right on.
within a couple more welds, I felt like I was comfortable with it.
Yeah, a big part of that is like figuring out who you should listen to and who doesn't know exactly what they're talking about, and that comes with experience.
Yes.
I was very ignorant when when YouTube first started becoming a big thing. Everyone's like, you should start a welding channel, and I'm like, there's already welding channels out there, and there's some techniques that, hey, you should show this on YouTube, and I'm like, I can't look at the person face to face. I don't know if they're going to learn this, but the reality is a lot of people become really good welders by learning from other people on YouTube. And
yeah, we did. I did take some bad advice early on. One guy taught me, he was like, you don't need to, I was MIG welding everything at the time. And he was like, you don't got to clean. Like if it's rusty, it'll weld through it. If it's got slag on it. And now I sand everything.
Cleanliness
Prep
is
and-
godliness.
Yes. Yeah. I ran into so many problems because of his advice,
Yeah, that's terrible advice. I mean, I guess if you're welding with like a 60-10 stick rod, but
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of prep every part of the surface that heat's going to touch.
Yeah.
And it'll suck that crap right back in.
Yeah. Now we acetone parts, and
nice.
after sanding them, we acetone them, and I mean, you just know you're not going to get any porosity, and it changes everything.
Yeah, it's welding is like a
Like a paint
action
job.
and reaction, and
Yeah.
like if something's going wrong, there's something causing that. So it's nice to start with a clean slate where that's
Yeah.
not going to be the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a paint job. The more you prep, the better you're. Of course, you got to be a good welder too,
Right.
But it's going to help significantly,
So what's your background in watching your videos? I saw you've got a lathe, you've got a big bandsaw, you've got the cutoff saw, you've got a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So especially with like the lathe. How did you teach yourself how to use that?
Yeah. So everything in our shop, I pretty much taught myself just
Okay.
because I didn't go to school for it, and so I got that lathe is a 1942 model.
Yes.
And we think it came off like a Navy ship
That sounds
because
about
of
right.
its colors, schemes, and stuff, and traded a Chinese 4-wheeler engine for it. And
Seems like a good deal.
really good trade. Yeah, it was a $400 engine. I probably got a $3,000
Yeah.
lathe from it. And it sat forever because it kept kicking belts. It's a leather belt driven, old school lathe. And one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to get this thing fixed. So me and a buddy spent hours, and it was just someone had adjusted the motor off, incorrectly. And then I was intimidated. I'm very bad about being intimidating by something because everybody's watching me learn how to use this
That
tool.
is a big deal.
So you don't want to look like an idiot,
Yeah.
in front of the world. And so one day, my wife was in my office, and I was like, I'm going to go learn how to run that lathe. And I understood it. I just didn't,
Yep.
know. So I started turning random pieces of steel. And I mean, I feel like anybody can learn something in a couple of days if you really put, your mind towards it. And I never looked back. It's like when I got a welder, I was like, how did I do this without a welder? I would pack everything on a little trailer, drive an hour to my brother's house. He would weld stuff for me
Oh, wow.
at the beginning of the channel. And then I would drive home, and every single time I'd get home and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot
Yep.
to weld this. So when I got a welder, I was like, how did I do this without a welder? It's like, how did I make it this long? Lathe is the same thing. It's like, I couldn't live without it now that I have it.
I like that just after kind of I haven't done the deep dive yet, which is coming, but you seem like you're a practical builder. Like I look at different people, and there's some people who are so pedantic. Why can't I say that word? Pedantic? Whatever.
I don't know.
They're so I don't know what
Particular?
I'm saying either, obviously. They're so like by the book, and everything's got to be to the half a mil tolerance or whatever tolerances you're working with, and you can't do it this way. I think there's the way I like to work is I want to get the job done with what I have, and sometimes that means doing things not exactly by the book. It seems like you just do what works.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not doing mil spec on these
Exactly.
buggies, but There's one place I do worry about that, and that's with my suspension geometry because
Okay.
we failed at that before, and so now I perfected that. But yeah,
Was that trial and error?
yeah, that was on national TV trial and error. So the Discovery Channel reached out.
Oh, no
and
way.
They was like, we would love to put you in a part of this episode. So I had just got a tubing bender from my buddy. I never used a tubing bender for it. And I was like, oh, we just got a tubing bender. We can build a twin engine chassis. And so they was like, we'll send the film crew out and film one day. So I had 5 days. And so in 5 days, I learned how to use that bender, and we built a full tube chassis with, full suspension. So we cut the suspension off a early 90s go-kart. It was a dual A-arm front suspension. And we didn't know there was all this geometry. So we welded on straight and everything. And so they're there at our shop for one entire day filming. And we drive out of the garage, and there's about a 4-inch drop. When we drop out that 4-inch drop, both tires, toe in really bad. I mean, extremely bad. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're filming. And then the news showed up, local news. So they're filming. So here, we look like a bunch of rednecks.
Everything you're trying to avoid.
Yeah. So here we are driving, and I drove it anyways, but I'm fighting it. I mean, every bump it hits, it's towing in and going in and out of camber. It was horrible. And, but the episode turned out, I was really afraid they would make me look like an idiot, because you never know.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And you can watch that Discovery Channel episode out there. So that was my first failure and I learned so much from that. So then I started reading forums on why did this happen, and I actually found it, believe it or not, on Mustang forums.
Okay.
A guy was building a Mustang. He had did some, drop front end on it, and he was having that problem. We found out all these different, like kingpin angle, Ackerman angle, and all these geometries that you have to get right. And then the second buggy I built has like 17 inches of wheel travel and 0 bumps here,
Nice.
And now it's very easy. It's like, how did I not know? But I mean, it's so easy to not know when you've never done it.
Exactly. I always look back, and now that I'm like the old guy, I look at somebody doing something, I'm like, that's common sense. Why aren't they doing that? And then you think back and you're like, I was taught that. Somebody told me that. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, and being on YouTube, you forget, because I've done this for 7 years. Someone will ask a question, I'll be like, I made a video about that. I'm not answering that. And then
You
I
got a bunch of new people.
Like I have to. It seems repetitive to me, but this is the reason I started this. I got to go back to my roots every once in a while and re-explain. But to me, it's like, man, I've talked about this 100 times, but I guarantee everybody's watching like, oh, I didn't know that,
Yep.
So I have to remind myself that all the time and have patience.
Any projects that from the past that you look back at it and you're wondering, it's like, why did I do that? I can't believe I did this.
There's one vehicle, no one actually knows this. There's one vehicle that haunts me, and that's the second buggy I ever built. And it's the most views we've ever got on our channel, which is a supercharged Harbor Freight engine. I did full billet internals and then built the long travel. It's the one with, 17, 18 inches of wheel travel. And love the buggy. It looks amazing, but I made one mistake in it. And when I was building the floor pan on the fab table, I messed up on my measurements, got the center bar down the center of the chassis 1 inch off. Don't know how I did it. Not a big deal most of the time, but my whole center measurements came off of that measurement. So I didn't realize I'd done it, and I built the whole front end. And then when I got the back end, I was like, why is this measuring like this? So my buggy is 1 inch longer on the left-hand side than it is on the right-hand side. And I'm like, oh my, and I hate it because of that. Like I look at it like, I don't want to finish you. And it's very hard. If I wouldn't have told you that, you'd have never seen it.
Right.
But now if you've seen it, you could find it in
on.
the chassis. Because it's a horrible mistake. So that's the one that haunts me the most.
And that's your second most watched video now?
It's the most watched.
Oh,
video.
most watched.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the video that got little traction, less traction than you thought it would?
There's been a lot of them because you never know.
The algorithm is always.
Yeah, we put a
jacking
radio, a Chinese radio out, and it goes viral more than anything. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're not even, this is off the shelf radio. So, I think we did one I was really excited for was we went to a like a trade show or not trade show, like a parking lot sale, and bought all these parts. And we bought a set of Dodge headers, and we built a trike out of a set of headers. So we welded the headers together, and the collectors was the frame, the whole headers, and we mounted a motorcycle. And I thought that would go like crazy, because it was all junkyard parts. We had a crazy rake on the front end and all this insane. And we actually used the headers and piped in the motorcycle engine to exhaust out the back of the headers. So not only is the frame the headers, but there was the exhaust as well. And it did good, but at the time it did 30,000 views, which is what a normal. And I was like, man, I thought that would go, and we've had a lot do really well that we didn't expect, and we had it the opposite way too. You really never know.
You're closing in on 400,000.
Yeah, we're real close.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane. Like you forget your milestones just because you're so busy. But I mean, I can remember the biggest number I remember early on was 6,000. I remember because that's when I started reaching out to sponsors and stuff because we needed help to do these videos. And but I remember 6,000. I remember 100,000 because we got our plaque. And I actually never showed our plaque on our channel. I just didn't want to seem proud or whatever.
Gotcha.
And it's in the garage, but I never said anything about it. It's in there. It's actually got weld spatter on it too. So,
what would be the project that you felt when you got done with it the most sense of pride? Like you were maybe wondering about it when going in, and then you came out of it, and it was like, oh wow.
It was the most stressful project, and that was the buggy we built for Quantum Machinery Group to take to SEMA.
Okay.
And so he called me and was like, I would like since it was our first time going to SEMA, he said it would be cool if we had one of your chassis on our table. And I was like, yeah, so we'll build a tube chassis. And then I called him, I was like, what would be cool is if we put suspension on it so people could grab it and move it through its travel. And it gives them something to play with, and they come in your booth.
Interactive.
And then I called him and was like, and it'd be cool if we put a motor on this thing because it's just going to look empty as a tube chassis.
And then it would be cool if I just came in doing a wheelie on it and just drove it up onto your table.
Yeah, and then I called him. I was like, we could pretty much be done with this with just a handful more hours, and you could have a running vehicle. So it escalated, and we left it bare metal. But that is the perfection of my chassis and suspension building because everything is so square on that chassis. And I actually I only had 3 weeks to build this, and we had to drive it to North Carolina to ship it out to Vegas. And I built the entire chassis, which you can see on the channel, and I got done with it because it takes me about 15 to 16 hours to build a tube chassis. And I build them off the top of my head. I don't know what I'm building when I start, but I just go with it. And I stood back and looked at it, and it looked like a dune buggy from the 80s. And I was like, I can't take this to SEMA. It's like, so it was probably the most stressed I ever was in my entire life. I remember my daughter went to my wife and said, I've never seen my dad like this, because I didn't know what to do because I got all these people really, waiting on me to show this. So I cut it all apart in one night and rebuilt it. And it's the best chassis that I've ever built by just sizing. It's like a NASCAR inside. You're just so hugged in there. And we end up putting a Harley Davidson 883 engine on it. And, could be bad, could be good, who knows?
Yeah,
and
yet to find out.
And then it got shipped off, and that was one of my greatest accomplishments. It's just so perfect in every way.
Killer. Was there a point? I had a point in my art journey where if I wasn't happy with the sculpture, even though I was almost done with it, I would have to cut it apart and just make it right, whatever it took. Was there that realization for you then, or did it happen before then? At some point where you're like, no, good. You finish a project and you're like, no, I should have fixed that.
Yeah.
And then you don't. But is there a point where you see that as you're doing it now?
Yeah. Like I can tell if I start questioning it, my wife knows I'm probably going to cut it apart. Yep. Like I'll start and I'll continue. I don't know why I do it now, because I know once I start questioning it, it's like you should stop right now and start over. But so if it gets in my head, I will normally work another day on it, and then I just ruin all my time because I'll just cut it apart. But as soon as I start second guessing, I need to just stop.
Yep.
A note to self.
Note to self. Just stop.
For future.
What's the biggest buggy you've built?
Probably my supercharged buggy was really too big in areas it didn't need, because it was my first real chassis I built. So it's a single seater, but you have like 8 inches beside your shoulders to the roll cage. And that's just a waste of space. It's so large. And that's why I say the SEMA buggy is so perfect in every way. It's
proportions.
I'm 6 foot tall, and it fits me like a glove, And so that was one that it's a little overkill. It's a little too long, and I could shorten it up. But it is what it is now. It's a stepping stone that we can have.
What was the reaction you got from that?
Is this the one right here on the screen?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
sweet.
the most viewed video on our channel is building that engine. Like I said, we took a 22 horsepower Harbor Freight engine that revved to 3,600 RPMs, and then we built it to what we're guessing is around 70, 80 horse, and it revs to 9,000 RPMs.
That's
and
awesome.
Pushes 14 pounds of boost. And then the day I started that and drove it, I mean, it just blew my mind. And what's crazy is I've never finished it fully. Like, it's finished, it just needs a few tweaks and then painted.
It's a work in progress.
But it's one of those things that it was the biggest thing of my career at the time, so it's almost like I'm avoiding it for some reason.
Gotcha.
I just mentally got it, and this is actually what we're going to do when we get back is strip this down, get it powder coated, and finish it finally.
So you got a bit of land to play around on?
Yeah, we got almost 15 acres
Nice.
there. Yeah, and then we have mountains all around us, so really we have unlimited options of where to ride.
Right on.
Do you ever get into like rock crawling chassis or anything like that?
I haven't yet, but we will, I'm sure. We've been rock crawling in the rock bouncers, but we haven't so far. I actually built like a straight axle. I like independent A-arms, double A-arms. So I haven't messed with straight axles much.
Gotcha.
So I need to learn the, geometries of those and stuff.
Well, do you go to other channels, kind of learn these builds, or you just kind of do your own research or take classes or anything?
When I was doing the suspension, no one was teaching it in cars or anything. Like, people would talk about one little segment of it, but they wasn't saying you need to do this, this, and this to get perfect geometry. So I found it in forums and just trial and error, and then made my videos to explain this is how you do a double A-arm, and now we're actually in the process of producing A-arm kits that you can buy, so you don't have to figure it out. It's already done for you. Coming soon, of course.
Gotcha.
But,
yeah.
because that's the hardest part of a chassis is the suspension. It's easy to throw something together and make it. It's not easy, but it's an easier part of it to make it look good and safe. But when you get the geometry of the front end, there's so much to take into account.
My buddy Max Fish actually wrote a book within the last 10 years. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but he was like a suspension guru. He ended up writing a book for everyone who thought that putting like a Mustang 2 front end was like the way to go. And it's pretty in depth, but it's illustrated, and it's like he's incredible with suspension stuff. I'll send that to you. See what you think about it.
Yeah. That was my biggest thing is I only wanted to watch a video. I
know, right?
I need to get it done quick. Because with YouTube, at the time I was trying to put out, I think 2 videos a week.
Okay.
So, and it blows my mind to look back at, you miss the good old days, because it used to take me 4 days to do something I can do in an hour now. It's insane as a fabricator where you get to. And it's like, why am I not, like, I used to get 2 to 3 videos done a week, and I can barely get 1 a week. Well, it's because, it used to take me a week to do these things, and now I'm doing them in a couple of hours, especially with the machinery we got. And so it gets harder to produce content also as you go. And then people expect you to do bigger and better.
And if you're not doing that, then they start looking for stuff elsewhere. And
and you start planing off and dropping in views, and you're just a has-been at that point. You got to keep on.
I saw somebody comment that they wish they saw more riding videos of you. And that seems like a lot of YouTube videos, that's basically how they built their following, was just like doing stupid stuff on go-karts. How do you feel about doing stupid stuff on go-karts for views?
We've done a lot of riding videos. Normally I don't anymore because they're boring to me, unless you're, jumping a huge gap and stuff.
You gotta do more crazy. Get the bulldozer out there.
Unless you're doing something crazy, even driving fast through the woods, because that's what I like to do is like, it's almost a trophy truck through the woods, as fast as I can go through those woods. And it looks awesome, but still we don't get a ton of views on them. So I'm like, what should I put my effort in spending 15 hours editing this video or 15 hours of work in the shop? And so that's the reason we don't put, there is an amount of people that would watch it, but it's nothing like a build.
Gotcha.
So it's almost like, you're better off building something than riding something.
I see.
Because we do ride stuff all the time. It's just, and normally when I go ride, I'm so tired of filming. I just want to have fun.
I know
we
that
have
feeling.
all intentions to film, and then we get there and it's like, nah, I don't put a camera on that. Let's go.
That's why I'm saying it's impressive. the videos that you post of your work. I'm supposed to be filming something for something, and then I'm like, wait, I just finished this and I didn't take any pictures. Like, you get in the mindset of working and you just want to work.
Yeah, and my wife loves, getting out of the house and going on vacation. I love not filming and just working on something. That's a
vacation right there.
Yeah, because work is filming. What I'm doing is, what I love and what I'm passionate about. So that's my next vacation. Is just everybody leave me alone and let me turn off the cameras and work on something. Yeah, and do it at my own pace. And
so, you talked about sponsors. What companies? Like you're here with some sponsors, right?
Yeah. So Quantum Machinery Group was one of our original sponsors. We got a Sigmund weld table from Germany, and one night we was trying to figure out how I was tired of clamping stuff to wood and trying to weld out in the garage. So I told my wife to go on Google, type in weld table, top 10 results, email them this, and so if I would have known, she would have emailed Quantum, which is a Cadillac. Sigmunds are the Cadillac of weld tables. I'd have told her not to. And they was the first ones that actually reached out the next morning. They saw my testimony on my channel where how God had blessed me with this, and he called me immediately and was like, I feel God telling me to do this. And I'm like, that's insane.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So.
Yeah, and it was such a blessing. And then after he called, all the other weld tables started calling, and luckily, I feel like it was a God thing. The greatest one called first, which is normally not the case.
No,
the biggest and baddest normally come in late, and so we've been with them for maybe 5 years or so, and it's been an awesome partnership, and we have tons of other, from little sponsorships to big, and it's a big way. You really can't do YouTube successfully without sponsors, honestly, not in this day and age. You don't make enough from the ad revenue to do it. You really got to bring those in. So you just pick wisely. Pick something that you think your followers would actually like. I'm not going to be throwing an ad up for some makeup or anything. It's
All right, now related. Before I weld today, I'm going to put on some eyeliner.
Yeah,
that would actually probably be a hit.
Yeah,
maybe I should do that. That's an interesting perspective. I haven't talked to a lot of people who built a channel, and the way you're doing it seems. It's so weird to say, but it seems like morally responsible. Where so many people, it's like the ends, the ends justify the means, and half the stuff they're doing up there is bullshit, or doing stupid stuff that cost them their lives almost, or whatever. And you did that from the ground up, just teaching yourself, and I admire how you built that a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and one thing a lot of YouTubers, and there's nothing wrong with this, I'm not, downing anybody. A lot of them build stuff just for the views. I've never once built something for the views. If I wouldn't honestly want to build that and not film it, I don't build it. And a lot of people don't like that. They want to see us put a Hayabusa engine on a shopping cart, and it's just like, for one, I got 2 kids and a wife that I love very much and I don't want to leave behind. So let's build something with a cage around me, and
it's not where your heart's at. Like, that's gimmicky stuff. Like what you're doing isn't gimmicky.
If I can't sell it to you and make you want it, then I don't want to build it. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to have this fortune of vehicles.
You got a junkyard full of stuff that you built from 30 years ago.
Yeah, I get rid of stuff, but a lot of channels are bad about building just this crazy. And again, I don't want to risk my friend's life or my life, so the views aren't worth it at the end of the day for that. And there's opportunities. I've had thoughts of man, this would be a great video, but I'm not getting on it, and I'm sure not letting my friend get on it, so I just pass it up.
I'll call me if you ever need that, and I'll get on it. So
I'll get your number afterwards.
I was going to say, you have several of your videos have, hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, and just wondering about, has that ever sunk in? That's, oh, wow, I got all these people just kind of, following my every move, and that they're, investing their time and effort on what I'm doing.
The biggest thing is and I do think about that. I think the last time I checked, we was around like 65 million total views on our YouTube channel. And I never think that, I'm no different than you or anybody that meets me. We're all on the same level. We're the same. It's just for some reason people want to watch me do it. Biggest thing is I want to be the best godly
You're very
example.
Handsome, so
thank you.
There's that. Yeah.
But I want to be the best godly example I can for people out there. And the biggest thing is like, and I'm not trying to push God or anything, but people think of God as this boring lifestyle, and look at the way I'm living, and I'm living for God, So that's my biggest goal in life
Gotcha.
is to do that because of what God has done for me.
Right
so,
on.
So yeah,
Right
that's
on,
the
very
only
cool.
thing that hits. Am I being an example that I should be? Because we've never cussed on the channel, or used anything.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah,
That's really rare.
and we don't drink. I haven't drank in 7 years probably. So,
Gotcha.
and the people see that, they notice it, and
Oh, yeah.
they reach out to us all the time. We get Christmas cards from wives saying that.
It's so great.
That's the most. That's the biggest thing that's ever happened is. A while back, a wife had sent me a postcard or it was a Christmas card saying that her husband was an alcoholic and stuff, and he saw my testimony, and now he's out in the garage right now with her kids, and that I gave her husband back, and I broke down at my computer when I read that.
Yeah,
That
you gotta cry after that.
That was better than any money or anything you can make from this.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's
Being
what
able to
it's all about.
touch people while you're doing what you love, leading by example of how you live your life. It's I mean, you got it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
So where do you see this going? Like, talk to different people, and some people have a plan. Most people have a plan. I'd never had a plan. It was just like I work and chips fall where they may. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years?
Yeah, I've had a 5-year plan since I was 5 years old. I
gotta keep updating it.
Yeah. So where I want to be now is we're working on our parts to start selling parts to make this hobby easier.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of companies out there doing stuff, but no one's making it affordable and easy. And so we're using like Miata parts and just different, very cheap and easy to get parts that are very strong at the same time for what we're doing. And coming out with front end kits and brake brackets.
What kind of parts do you use out of the Miata?
CV axles and wheel bearings. Like you can use their wheel hubs, and their CV axles you can get, 20 inches of wheel travel out of their CV axles, as long as you have your, geometry right. And they're, a Miata, you can push with the turbo 300 horse, and they handle it. So, crotch rocket engine doesn't make that much torque. So they're great parts. And I think 2 of those CV axles are $100. And
that's very reasonable.
Yeah, and their wheel hubs with bearings in them are $60 for 2 of them. So if I can build everything around those parts, and their brake rotors work good with these Willwood dual piston calipers that are cheap. So we figured all this stuff out. And on the rear you use Mini Cooper wheel bearing assemblies, and it's just, we figured all this stuff out through trial and error to make it easier for them. So we're making all the brackets for them to bolt all this stuff together.
Gotcha.
And because a lot of people in this use Porsche axles because you can buy them in any length, but they're extremely expensive.
Say
Probably
Porsche?
4 times Porsche, yeah, like VW Porsche.
Ah,
and
gotcha. Yeah.
because you can get them in any length you want because of the rail buggy days. They made all this stuff, but you're spending 4 times as much as a set of Miata, where if you just do your suspension right, you can use them right off the shelf. The SEMA buggy had Miata parts, it had 350Z parts on it. We found all these parts that are really easy to get and cheap, and that's what we're pushing.
It's a hell of a buggy.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think it has the steering off a 2004 Toyota Prius, electric power steering in it, and so we've got everything molded in this. So you have you can steer them with one finger, our buggies, and no bump steer. But that's what we're trying to help these people create, is the same thing.
So you're kind of straddling the gap between like hardcore go-kart and a side-by-side.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, that would be the best way, a modern day dune buggy. Because back in the day, people was building these things in their garages, and scrapping stuff together.
My
And
dad
it
built one
kinda-
out of VW buggy when he was 18.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it died off for a while. You didn't
Yeah,
see
it
it,
did.
and now it's sparked back up. And now with the internet, of course, you can watch people do anything, So it's awesome but that's my 5-year goal, is to build that up. I built a big shop, which was my, quote unquote dream shop, and now
Now it's crowded.
I got one baby bay left, and
I think we all know that story.
yeah. So next is a bigger shop, and then start producing these parts. And we're starting a podcast next year.
Nice.
And we don't have the room for it right now. We're just out of room,
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of plans. Just keep growing the business, and
Hell yeah.
hopefully they all, we can see it through.
Hell yeah. I like it.
what projects do you have in line, here for the future they can share with
We
us?
got the SEMA buggy back because it stayed gone for over a year. It went to SEMA, then it went to PRI, and then it went in their showroom.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much done. It just needs like linkages made, and the main fabrication's done. Gas tank needs to be built, things like that. So we're finishing it. We're finishing my buggy, and then we got a Honda Goldwing, and it's a Boxer 6-cylinder, 100 horsepower bike, and we're putting it on a chassis and going to make I want to make a daily driven buggy that you can drive to the grocery store. Because Tennessee, you can put a tag on a horse, if you want to.
They got the same thing out west. Arizona's the same deal.
Yeah, no problems with putting a tag on anything. So you can get anything street legal in Tennessee. So we're going to get it street legal, and I'm going to make me a vehicle that I can drive to the parts store and stuff with a Honda Goldwing engine,
Oh, yes. Have a little trunk in the back, or like a little bed in the back.
Yeah, going to have a dump bed with a hydraulic cylinder, yeah. Yeah, and that's my next big project, which we actually already got the chassis built.
Nice.
We kind of quit on one project I didn't like, but it's got a really cool chassis, and I was like, that's what we're going to use. So it'll be a quicker project. Now that we have CNC plasma tables and stuff, I'm not spending 9 hours grinding anymore,
I like your little magnetic hold down too. I might have to get one of them. That's
for what is it?
better than going through all my gloves.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, and they're very cheap, and I highly recommend it for sure.
How long have you had the plasma table for?
We got it last December,
Cool.
or right before December, and put that thing together. That was a kit, it's all in pieces. It's an Avid CNC kit, so you can actually swap it over to a router if you want. But it's very, I say kit makes it sound cheap. It's very robust, and that when we got it changed my life.
Nice. We just got a fast cut CNC.
Oh yeah.
And just haven't had the time to really dig into it. I've made a few parts here or there, but yeah, when you make that first bracket that you were going to have to, series of 4 brackets, you were going to have to make by hand, and you just did it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Yeah. On the flight out here, that's what I was doing. Is I had my iPad doing some CAD brackets to get them ready for when I get back. It's so fun just to pop in the office for 10 minutes, make this bracket, and then cut it in 1 minute, and then my garage isn't covered with grinder dust. And
are you designing anything from scratch, or is it mostly modified?
Everything is, yeah. Everything's like,
So
every one of my
CAD?
spindles. We did Shaper 3D, which is a simple, I mean, you can do anything in there.
Right.
But I wouldn't call it, Fusion 360 or anything. But I learned with it, and I don't see a reason to moving past it because I can do everything. But I taught myself, 2 days or one night really, and then in 2 days I was ready to cut 7 different parts.
Nice.
And to me that stuff comes very easy. It's just which I was in software and hardware and computers before this, but which was self-taught. I got a job at a dealership to sell cars and got in there and I was like, I can't not know what I'm going to make every month. So then I was like, what can I do? Because I'm not going back to factory work. I hated factory work more than anything.
What kind of factory work did you do?
We made windshields at some point for cars, like it's called Carlex, and then I worked at a corn, high fructose corn syrup plant.
Yes.
And
I'd be dead right now if I worked there.
yeah. So just and then worked at a block company that made center blocks, and I fed the machine that, just dead end jobs really, honestly, and I couldn't stand
Not
just
really
feeling like a robot.
Yeah.
I was just a number to the company, and then I got this job at this dealership, and again found out like I don't want to sell cars. This is horrible. I needed stability is what I needed. So I saw the IT guy come in and set a computer up, and then 2 hours later they had to call him back, and it was like $100 fee every time. And I was like, man, he's making all this money. I could save the dealership. So I ordered a computer kit and started reading about software. And 2 weeks later, I took the owner out to lunch, and I was like, listen, I can take over your entire IT department if you'll let me. And cause I don't want to sell cars and I don't want to be a mechanic anymore. I thought I wanted to be a mechanic but I hate working on cars. And
Same.
so he said, I'll give you a 2-week trial. And then it went from there. And I was there for 6 years as their technology specialist.
Right on.
And running 60 computers, and
Did they end up replacing you as someone like you, or do they just go back to calling people in when they need them?
they replaced, it took 3 guys to take my job. So now they hired 3 guys to
Go
fill my
back and be like,
position.
hey, you should have been paying me more, huh?
Yeah, well, I was working 20 hours when I quit. I was there for 40
Yeah.
hours, and that's how, honestly, I owe that job a lot because I was able to learn the ins and outs of YouTube because I went after YouTube as a career. It wasn't never like, oh, it's going to be a hobby. It'll be fun. I was like, no, this is how I can make money at it, and this is what I'm going to do. And I was able to learn that while sitting there at that job.
That's a lot of foresight that you saw that. I know a lot of people go into it trying to, but it's still more of a side thing.
Mhm.
But going into it with a plan, obviously it worked. Pretty incredible.
Yeah. This was in the when I started it was in the vlogging days. Do you remember everybody vlogging?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, how are these people doing this? Because they was doing daily vlogs, you know, and I never wanted to vlog because I'm like, no one's life is important enough for you to watch or me to watch, you know.
Once or twice a week's good.
Yeah, and then that's when I was like, how are these guys doing this? Because every day a new video would pop up from them, and I started digging into it and found out about revenue. And then when they would show this, you know, product on their channel, that company's paying them for their placement, you know. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do, you know.
Right on.
Went after it, and we had tried YouTube before, and you can't find these videos, but we did comedy skits. And they're hilarious, but I could never let them see the light of day.
I don't know. You got to maybe slip that into a bonus episode or something.
Well, these was BC, before Christ, so I keep those on a drive deep down.
We're now AC.
What were the theme of the skits though?
You can't talk about that.
Just to give you a taste. This is when the bath salts incident happened, so we did a bath salts episode where I'm like, hey, I want to try some bath salts, but I ordered Bath and Body Works bath salts to my door. And then my friend ended up eating the UPS man's leg off, you know, because of the incident that happened in Florida with the bath. So that's what they was about. There was several of them, but I just couldn't. I spent a ton of money buying cameras, and it was hard to find help. My friends was in college and stuff, and here I am trying to make YouTube videos with them. So I gave that up, which I'm glad I did. Comedy's very hard to do. I love to laugh. That's one of my favorite things in the world is make people laugh and laugh.
It's easier to teach people to build something than try to make them laugh, I think.
Yeah, and try to make money off making them laugh.
Yeah, right, right.
It's even harder.
Oh, you know, one thing I noticed was this hot rod go-kart that you did. What's the story behind that?
Oh, that's sick.
Caught my eye.
A guy at our church had that. He bought for his son, and his son just doesn't care about engines. So we went and got this thing out of a dog barn. He raises German Shepherds, and it was covered with hay and everything. And we made it way faster than I can't fit in it, because if you notice on the videos, my friend who weighs 140 is in it every time. But we put big drag slicks on it and hydraulic disc brakes and electric start engine and stuff. And now it sits outside like, what am I going to do with this? I can't fit in it. So it's just one of those. It's an awesome, I think it was used for the Shriners. Circus
like
and
parades.
Stuff. Yeah, I think that's.
That guy won all the races.
Yeah, I think it'll do 60 mile an hour now.
Really?
And, it's got all kinds of awesome features. We did rack and pinion steering in it like a car.
Oh, that is so sketchy. I love it.
This is after we did a lot of work to it. I think it was before we did the steering. But yeah, the body's just held on with 4 bolts, so you can see it shaking.
Sure.
Is that the original paint?
Yeah. We was going to paint it like ZZ Top, the red with if I ever finish it, that's what'll be done to it. But I don't know what to do with it now, so it just sits out there.
I need to lose some weight, and I'll drive it around.
Yeah. Maybe that could be my goal: lose weight to fit.
I know, right?
Right.
You and me both. Now we see this, and obviously we've seen the buggies. What's the weirdest thing you've ever built or even worked on?
It would be that header. We call it the rat rod trike because it was
where
just
the frame was the
headers of. I think they was Dodge. Pretty sure because we had to find headers that was symmetrical.
Yep.
You know, because some engines will have the pipes all weird. We needed them exactly the same on each side of the block. So when we welded it together, that was the weirdest. And then I sold it. We got done with it and sold it to a guy, and I don't know where it's at now.
Right on.
But it was definitely fun because we bought everything at a swap meet.
Swap meet, yeah.
That was a word I was looking for earlier.
You were almost there.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of it either once you said it. I'm like, I know what he's talking about. Why can't I think of it?
Yeah. Yeah, so we did that from a swap meet. And need to do that again one day. Just go buy everything we can from a swap meet.
That's a great idea.
And go build, yeah.
It'd be cool to do, we could set up a build-off where everyone goes to their junkyard and grabs a certain amount of weight of parts and comes back and builds a go-kart.
Yeah. I would love to, at one point, this is hard because of insurance purposes and stuff, but I would love for some viewers to be able to win a chance to come fab with me for a weekend.
That'd be
something.
Awesome.
Yeah, and bring their vehicle and we could fix it up. But then you worry man, what if they get hurt and they
liabilities
sue me? Yeah, that's my biggest fear is I don't want to make my family suffer for something that happens.
Here's a pile of paperwork that you're going to have to sign. It's going to take about 2 hours.
Yeah, and we might as well just start telling people if you get a vehicle from us, it's for show only. It's a replica, not meant to drive, and if you drive it, that's on you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of disclaimers, basically.
Yeah. We'll have to pay some good lawyers. So,
is there anything that we haven't hit on that you wanna cover?
It's a great hobby. I always say with this hobby, what got me into it was it's cheap and you learn so much. Like now I know full geometry of a front end that
knowledge.
I never thought. Yeah. And you can use that because a lot of vehicles have, AA arm front suspension and stuff. So I always tell people, even if you don't think you care about this stuff, you can learn so much. We're building engines with, 400% more power than they came with, reliable, and you learn a combustion engine, you learn fabrication, you learn all these things, but you're doing it on a scale that's very affordable. These engines are $120 at Harbor Freight, that we're building. I mean, yeah, they're $2,000 when we get done with them, but
that's what I was just going to ask is the work that's done with them.
Yeah, they're insane. Nothing's really stock on them. Normally, the only thing we keep stock is the block and the crank, but everything else, I'm talking lifters, push rods, everything, even the heads are fully done.
Where do you source those from?
There's a bunch of companies. They're more than you think once you start digging on performance parts. Yeah, that make like billet. There's an aircraft company out of Georgia that makes billet rods and billet flywheels for them, and it's just their side hustle. When their $1 million machines aren't running for the government, they make
awesome.
go-kart parts. But yeah, there's tons of companies out there to find anything you want to do to these things. It's just endless.
So I got a friend he bought a place that has a go-kart track on the property, and it comes with like 6 go-karts. So he's going to give one to each of his friends to like modify.
Yeah.
But I want to modify the engine because nobody else is going to do that.
Yeah.
And just blow them out of the water.
An engine.
I'm also fatter than they are. So.
Yeah, I can ship you an engine that's 22 horsepower and 9,000 RPMs, and I can guarantee you they won't build what this one will have.
I could make it. I could even redo the frame and make it out of heavier material.
Yeah,
that'll be awesome.
You said Fast and Furious kind of piqued your interest in all of this. Now, what's your favorite Fast and Furious movie?
The very first one.
First one.
I like. I didn't like them after Tokyo Drift a lot. Like I still watch them. I watch one day. Me and my son and daughter sat down and watched. This was before
Tokyo Drift
came
was
out.
Awesome.
I loved it, and a lot of people downed it, but it was one of my favorites. But I just remember renting the first one. I didn't even know what it was. My brother came home with it, and me, him,
from
and
Blockbuster.
No, our town's too small for a Blockbuster. I think it was Main Street Video or something.
Yeah, we had that where I grew up too.
No, we have not. We actually have one in the Ingles grocery store. So you walked in the grocery store and there's a little movie rental. But my brother came and we watched it, and I remember just my mind was melted, and I turned it right back on. I watched it 3 times that night, and it was just like, and that's when Walmart started getting neons, and Advanced Auto Parts had the Nopi. You remember the Nopi brand stuff, which was just neons and hubcaps and stuff like. But that's when my mom would get groceries. I was in the automotive aisle just dreaming, what I would do with this stuff. And, we're doing a modern day version of that, just tweaking everything. Yeah. And it's a blast.
Those movies had such an impact on so many different genres of just wrenching and building and fabricating. And
they fueled every high school in America when that first one came out.
Monte Carlo versus the Viper in the Tokyo Drift. That was so dope.
Everybody's Honda Civic and Dodge Neon automatically went to a race car.
Yep.
And it might have just been paint, but
everyone had their Lightnings with I can't remember what their shop was.
The performance shop. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, they had that on the side of their vehicles.
Yeah, I feel like all the Fast and Furious movies came out as like most high schools were getting rid of like their shop programs.
Yeah, that and at the same time, Monster Garage was a big part of that revolution that I think we're starting to see now come to fruition, where you've got all these next generation builders that got into it because of those guys, and their styles are going to be way different than the people before them.
True.
And I think that sometimes creates like a little bit of friction, but it's better off for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, progression.
Yeah.
And then you have wildly different budgets from a network show to us, so you get to see
the
if
innovation.
you could just buy everything off the shelf, or using junkyard parts and eBay parts for little cars. So I think it's a good mix up. What everybody thinks they should like one guy and hate the other, and it's
I
like,
know,
why
right?
can't you like them all? It's
They're
just
all
we're all different. Yeah.
Yeah, they add their different thing to.
Yeah.
No, everyone wants to turn everything into a rivalry on social media and in real life. I say that as my actual rival, Tom Patsis, is going to be here at some point for me to interview. So, arch nemesis.
This is your third time attending FabTech in Chicago?
Yeah, at Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you always hope to get out of it every time you attend? Because we're recording this first day of FabTech. We're
literally
2 hours
the show just opened.
Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite thing is meeting people. Just which I like looking at the machinery, but honestly, can I afford this water jet? That I'm looking at. But it's incredible at the technology that's there, you see stuff is like, man, that is crazy. They have that now. Because again, we was using grinders for so long, but I love meeting people, even people that don't know who I am. We're just talking about the products we use in our garage. And it's just awesome being surrounded by everybody here likes what you like.
Like-minded people.
Yeah, fabrication and just building stuff. So, and I love Chicago. It's I haven't been to many big cities, but this is one of my favorite places we go to.
Yeah.
For sure. I wouldn't take it over, our little Sweetwater, Tennessee, but I like it here quite a bit.
Fair enough.
Cool thing about looking at things that seem out of the world now is that the trickle down happens.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden 3D printers are affordable. And then, these other the plasma tables become more affordable. Robotic welding cells, guys are buying them to start, shops out of their garage. It's really incredible how quickly some of that's becoming attainable.
Yeah.
And it's a process, but 5 years from now, you might have a robotic welding cell doing parts for you,
for a couple $1,000.
Running 24 hours cycles. So that's one fun thing at FabTech is you can kind of come here and dream about some things, and that's changed. Like the first one I went to, which was like 20 some years ago, it was pure big industry, and I think the conference had a little bit of a struggle adapting to when it became more of a it's still the heavy industrial, but now you got these guys coming up that don't necessarily work for anybody but themselves, and they used to get blown off, but now they're getting attention because those guys and girls are building businesses that then are investing in these kinds of things. Yeah,
and we started. Georgia was the first one we ever went to, and then so we went. I think it's our 5th or 6th year.
Oh, right on.
And it was awesome because we had never been to anything like this, before. So when we was seeing water jets that can sit on your desk at work and stuff, it's like, man, this is insane.
Yeah.
And then, like you're saying, is technology's advancing so fast and stuff is getting so cheap. We have lasers we can cut stuff in our garage, and it just blows me away that what you can get now. Because when I was a kid, there was nothing. There was not even barely internet.
Right.
So it's crazy to see where the world's gotten to.
It's definitely evolving at a quick pace at this moment.
I was gonna ask this earlier, but when we were talking about the movies, but any movies outside of Fast and Furious, car movies that you love? That
Fast and Furious was the one. There was copycats that tried to be, and of course Fast and Furious was the OG one, and I can't think of another car movie that comes to mind. I remember Swordfish when that was a real cool movie, kind of different because they wasn't fixing up cars per se, but
what was that movie that incorporated the Mini Coopers? It was like a heist.
Italian Job.
Yeah, Italian Job. Never seen that movie actually.
I
saw that
one.
Put it on your list.
The old one is really good. The new one's pretty good. I watch all kinds of weird B movies though.
Yeah.
There's this one out right now on Netflix called Lost Bullet, and it's dubbed. Like a lot of these movies coming from different countries are dubbed now, so you don't have to. You can do both. But this dude puts a V10 Lamborghini engine into a compact French car and then fortifies it and then drives through a jewelry store to make a theft. Like it's awesome. But he ends up driving all the way through because just too much power, and then he gets caught. But there's some modification, like not like glitzy modification, like he just throws together stuff on his car. Like I'm big into Mad Max. Like I love the Mad Max aesthetic. My truck was really nice, and now it's not, so I'm just Mad Maxing it out.
Yeah. that's probably was my favorite movies was in the world movies, like, Mad
Yep.
Max style. And but one thing that did pop into my mind was Need for Speed. When Fast and Furious came out, Need for Speed games followed that, and this was right when the first Xbox came out. And I ended up trading. We was raised pretty broke, so I would trade my toys and trade till I could get what I wanted. And I got an Xbox, and they were still pretty new, so $400 console I ended up with. And I remember Need for Speed came out, and I was like, I gotta go get that, and saved up all my Christmas money, went and bought it, and I played every Need for Speed until they kind of got away from the Fast and Furious aspect.
Yeah.
But that was probably bigger than Need for Speed was bigger than Fast and Furious for me, because it was hands-on. You could build your car, and that sparked it even more. That kept it going.
That's interesting.
Because it took years for us to get another Fast and Furious, after the first one. There's kind of a dead period from 3 to 4, I think it was. So the Need for Speed games is what really, I still would love to go back and play them again. I don't have much time for video games anymore.
Same. I look at like the vintage, Darla and I actually were looking at some of the vintage consoles, and it's like, I don't have time to do anything now. What am I going to do with, but I still want one.
Yeah, we have my old Super Nintendo set up. I have all the games from when I was a kid. and those are fun because you can play them for 10 minutes. Now you got to play a game for 3 hours just to, get into it. And I'm like, I ain't got time for this.
Darla has a great story with her brother and her dad were all trying to beat The Legend of Zelda, which was a long kind of game. And each of them would do it individually. And they came home one day, and their dad's car was in the driveway. They're like, oh, Dad's home early.
Yeah.
Walk in. He's like, hey, I got something to show you. Sit down on the couch. Puts in a video. He'd recorded himself. He came home from work early to record himself beating Legend of Zelda.
That's
and then
awesome.
Force them to watch it.
Yeah.
It's like, that is the biggest mic drop. Like, I'm your dad. Don't forget it.
Isn't that
moment.
what Twitch is now?
Yeah,
pretty
totally.
much,
He was the innovator of Twitch if he would have just marketed it.
Right.
Yeah.
No kidding.
My uncle was that guy. He was the guy that said, if you gave him like a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and some Doritos, he'd beat any game for you in one night, And so we would do that all the time, and he would beat it while we watched him. He was like, that was awesome. He was our rock star,
Yeah, totally.
At Nintendo.
Greg, it was great having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Appreciate
Sure.
you giving us your time and telling us your story. It's an incredible story. Super good.
And where can we find your YouTube channel and you on social?
Everything is Redbeard's Garage. So if you search it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I think TikTok's Redbeard's Garage 0. But yeah, you can stay up to date probably more on Instagram. And then if you want to see the live action version of it, YouTube's where we're at.
Thanks for tuning in, and look for the Fabricator Podcast on your favorite streaming source for podcasts. And that's a wrap.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited with the help of Brandon Geyer. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Dana Weicker, Mary Diamond, Mike Owens, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.